everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks over here on That's Comical. And if you happen to be watching and it's a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. So here we are, everybody, the first of 2024's Stats, Trends, and Picks videos. I am very excited to talk about what's going on in the comic book industry by not giving too much away in these videos. I'm also excited to give you guys my usual predictions for the upcoming month, as well as all of the things that I got correct and incorrect regarding the past month's picks. I'm really excited to see what the trends are going to be like this year because, as of now, I'm already being pretty surprised, and I'm not even going to waste my time here. I'm going to go straight to the numbers. So we're only going to see the purchasing numbers as well as the percentages because we have to wait for February's picks to show up in order to actually see some colors going on in the graph. But when we take a look at what happened last year, Image was pretty much one of the higher groups, and then came DC, but Marvel was sort of somewhere in the middle. At some point they were in the really high spots, and most of the time they were very much on the low spots. And that's just due to the fact that there's a lot of stuff that's been going on at Marvel that I personally was not interested in. Granted, I was enjoying a lot of the mini-series, the ones that were being done by Ron Mars and Ron Lim, as well as the one that was done by Peter David, which was Joe Fixit. And I know he's got another one coming out so far this year. I'm not going to read it, but I'm sure it's going to be loved by many people, because he's great at bringing that 90s nostalgia back. But the big thing that we're seeing here is, look, Marvel Comics starts off the year strong. They have the largest amount of comics that I purchased so far this year. A total of 42 comics, 14 of them were Marvel, and DC and Image were neck and neck, and the other, which once again, if you're new, it's a conglomerate of all the other independents. So I'm talking about your Boom Studios, your Dark Horse, your IDW, your Scout Comics, you know the drill. So we started off pretty slow in regards to that, but I'm just going to let you guys know, be aware that that number is going to go up. I'm guaranteeing you, because there's been a lot of interesting stuff being announced right when we welcomed 2024. And it seems like we are in a very interesting year, a pivotal year for Western comic books. There's many reasons as to why, there's many names to be mentioned as to why, but one of the biggest things that happened in January was a very hyped book, and the hype ended up to be real. I was actually someone that didn't want to buy into the hype, and because I didn't and heard about what was going on, I realized I need to get on this to see it for myself, and that, of course, is the biggest surprise. It was from Marvel Comics, and it was Jonathan Hickman's first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man #1. The relaunch of the Ultimate Universe and all of the single titles coming out this year. We've got this one, we've got Black Panther coming out in February from Brian Hill, we've got X-Men #1 by Peach Momoko, and we have the Ultimates coming later on this year. But I didn't think I wanted to get involved in this universe because I read the Ultimate Invasion books by Jonathan Hickman and the Ultimate Universe special one-shot, and I thought they were good but not great. So I was like, I don't think I want to do this. But lo and behold, I let the week go by, the week that it comes out. It was the second week of January, and the reviews were showing up on YouTube, and it was blowing up, and I mean tremendously. So I was like, I gotta read this book for myself. So I unfortunately had to pay almost $20 to get an issue #1, and I couldn't even get the A cover. I ended up getting one of the variants, and there were numerous variant covers, because the A cover is now selling for over $100 on eBay. I am not joking. This book is red hot. I mean, red hot. So much, in fact, that it's getting a second and a third printing already. I'm putting myself down for a second printing because if this comic is going to be as valuable as it seems to be, and I'm not one that really collects comics for the value, I collect the comics for the reading, so that means I need to preserve this variant cover of the first printing of #1. I have to. I just have no other choice. I would love to get it signed if I could, but I read the book, and the hype is real, guys. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 by Jonathan Hickman is a great read. And I don't know what the rest of this run is going to be. I don't know how long this run is going to be. I don't even know what the intentions of Jonathan Hickman are for this brand new Ultimate Universe. But knowing what he did with the Ultimate Universe when the original one came out, starting in the early 2000s, ironically with Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis, could we end up going into the same direction that he did with a different kind of Secret Wars? I don't know. But Marvel also is doing a lot of very interesting facsimiles. This is also the 40th anniversary of the 1984 phenomenon over at Marvel Comics, the original Secret Wars. And they are not only giving us a special facsimile issue, but we are going to be getting every single month for the next 12 months, all 12 issues in facsimile. So this is a good opportunity for me to finally read it. That's number one. And number two, just have a collection of floppies of this story that basically was the first groundbreaking, massive crossover story in the Marvel Universe. And that led to so many trends that happened in the Marvel Universe, in the DC Universe. I mean, Secret Wars came out 1 year before Crisis on Infinite Earths came out. So it's interesting. There are some big surprises going on at Marvel, but we'll see. Along with the Krakoan Age of X-Men coming to an end, and the Chip Zdarsky 6-issue miniseries Avengers Twilight, who knows? Who knows if Marvel is going to finally get back on top, and DC's been giving some pretty good news itself. I'll give you guys some more details on that as the year goes forward. So let's look at the percentages. We've got, obviously, Marvel at the very top, but not by much. It was just a little bit, 1 point pretty much, so I'd like to see what's happening, because I will say I have a lot of Marvel Comics in my pull list now because I want these facsimiles. I'm investing myself somewhat in the Ultimate Universe now, and I'm still reading The Incredible Hulk, just to name a few things. So, who knows? This could be a turning point for Marvel, and possibly for DC, but I still believe that what we're going to see at the end of 2024 is Image Comics on top. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. So how do we do for the top pick predictions of January 2024? Well, we were near perfect. Almost there. And we'll start off with the first week of January 2024, where I thought that I was going to give the top pick over to Marvel Comics, and it was going to be the final installment of Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy. That's issue number 5 by the Rons. That's Ron Mars and Ron Lim. Now, don't get me wrong. This whole story was phenomenal. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I really want to see Ron Mars and Ron Lim team up many, many times, because this is what's keeping my interest in Marvel alive. These types of nostalgic 90s-like stories, and I mean Peter David is also doing these exactly the same way, just making them fun, making them action-packed, in-your-face, funny. That's what great comics and great stories are all about. They just gotta entertain you. That's really what it's all about. But that's not what ended up being my top pick. It ended up going to one of the least talked about books in comics these days. I gave it to Boom Studios' Ghost Lore number 7 by Cullen Bunn. And it was a small new comic book week. I mean, I loved the final issue of Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy over at Marvel, but Ghost Lore is definitely one of the big books right now that nobody's talking about. I don't know who's reading it. I don't know if it's extremely popular amongst many, but Cullen Bunn has become one of my favorite writers, and I'm really digging this story. It's going in directions I didn't expect it to go in, and we are now officially on the second half of this story, so I'm really excited to see how this story is going to end in the second arc. For the second week of January of 2024. That was the week that Ultimate Spider-Man number 1 came out. And now that I've read it, is it my favorite pick of the week? No, it was not. And it wasn't anticipating to be. I was actually expecting it to be a certain book, and lo and behold, we have our first tie of 2024. I gave it to my original pick, which was Transformers number 4 from Daniel Warren Johnson over at Image and Skybound. And the final piece of the first story arc of Rick Remender's The Sacrificers, also over at Image Comics, The Sacrificers number 6. Both of these books, completely different, but very much enjoyable. The Sacrificers, you guys know my thoughts about it. I've been so on board with this book since I picked up the first issue. And as far as Transformers, I am loving the Energon universe. I'm so excited for March for Void Rivals by Robert Kirkman to come back. Duke and Cobra Commander miniseries by Josh Williamson just started up, and I'm really loving it too. So excited to see how the Energon universe is going to continue in 2024. It's one of the big reasons why I think Image is not only going to be the #1 comic book company in the country this year, but it's also going to be one of the things that saves the comic book industry. That's just a little bit of a tease. For the third week in January, I knew it was going to be my correct picks, and I gave it to Miracle Man, The Silver Age, issue number 7. I love this world. I love Miracle Man to death. I feel like a broken record here, but I absolutely think that this may be my favorite comic book of all time, going all the way back to the Alan Moore introduction to this reinvention of Miracle Man. And the Silver Age definitely delivered. The only thing that it didn't deliver on was how long it took for each book to come out. There were a lot of reschedules and a lot of pushbacks, but we finally reached the end, and there was an error on the book. If you read the book, do you know what the error is? Put it in the comments below. But the good news is, when we finished this story, of course, not only did it make me crave more, but it said on the last page, to be continued in Miracle Man, The Dark Age, the third story arc in this Neil Gaiman, Mark Buckingham extravaganza. I really hope that it is everything that it should be. For the fourth, but not final, week of January 2024. That was the most important thing. It was a 5-week new comic book month. What a great way to start off the year. And I gave it, once again, correctly. And I gave it to the brand new Universe introduction to Geoff Johns' Ghost Machine. This is a book that a lot of people were excited about, and we are now going to be getting some big things in the coming weeks, because in April, the Ghost Machine universe from Geoff Johns is going to explode. We're going to get the Geiger ongoing series along with so many other big stories like Redcoat and Rook Exodus. I believe another Junkyard Joe is coming, and this is the other thing that I feel is going to save Western comics, because Geoff Johns has taken to Image the best names in writing and artistry in the comic book business. We're talking names like Peter Tomasi, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, just to name a few. And there's more comics on the way from this brand new original universe, and I am very much on board. Geiger, when it originally came out in its 6-issue miniseries, I didn't really think it was the greatest thing in the world. I thought that Geoff Johns just loved the classic DC characters more. But after reading the Geiger Ground Zero, I am on board once again, and I am anticipating great things because improvements were made, and Ghost Machine #1, this one-shot, it shows. And for the final prediction in January of 2024, I thought that it was going to go to the record-breaking 350th issue of Spawn. But it wasn't, because it got pushed. And believe it or not, I still haven't gotten my copy of Spawn 349 yet. There was an issue at the store, and I won't be getting it until the first week of February. So, it turns out that it went to, because it was also a very small new comic book week for the final week of January, but I gave it to Josh Williamson's Duke #2 over at Image Comics. Of course, installment from the Energon universe. I love the first issue, and Cobra Commander issue #1 was great too. This is just flat out fun. So now that I'm really in the thick of the Energon universe, I mean, we've seen how G.I. Joe and Transformers have officially crossed over. We've seen how Transformers has crossed over with the original story of Void Rivals. But I am now dying to figure out how in God's name are Void Rivals and G.I. Joe going to cross over? Are they going to even cross over at all? And more importantly, Duke and Cobra Commander are just mini-series, so what is it leading to? They say there's something big coming, so I'm really curious to see what's going to happen after these series both wrap up. Cobra Commander may not have been in my top spot last month, but it definitely is going to be in my honorable mentions, if anything. If you check us out over on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I actually still call it Twitter. I can't stop calling it Twitter. But I always post my top pick of the week, and I always give honorable mentions. If it's a really good week, you'll see a maximum of 4. But if it's not a good week, you'll see maybe 2. I don't think there's ever been a point in time where you've ever seen just 1 honorable mention. So it's a very exciting time, as I've been saying. If you hear the enthusiasm in my voice based on the comic books that I'm talking about today, I'm really hoping that you guys are on board. So that's pretty much what happened in January. So what are we looking forward to in February of 2024? Well, I am very excited for February. I think it's going to be a much better month, because this month was not, because January was not a bad month, especially because it had 5 new comic book weeks. So we're going to start off strong. I have been touting this book, And if it wasn't because of the fact that the rest of this series would be coming out in 2024, this book probably could have beaten Rick Remender's Sacrificers for my favorite book of 2023. But this right now is already in the top spot for 2024. And it is the third installment over at IDW's Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Dexter meets Richard Scarry's Busy Town, everybody. The first two issues were unreal. I love the writing. I love the art. It looks so like something out of a children's book. But then the adult themes come in and it just grips you and you never want to let go. I am just so happy that this book exists. It gives me big expectations for IDW, which I haven't really been getting enough books from, except for the Ninja Turtles books. But there's going to be a lot of purchasing from IDW on my end, especially because of Ninja Turtles. And you'll find that out as 2024 rolls on. For the second week of February, I'm going to another indie company. I'm going to Dark House Comics because one of my favorite writers, who is over at Dark House Comics, Matt Kindt, has a big book coming out. And by big, I mean it's expensive. It's a $9 book. It's a very interesting looking miniseries. I've already read the blurb, and it's called If You Find This, I'm Already Dead. I mean, the title just grips me, but when I read what this book is going to be about, I got very, very excited, and it is very hard for me to not get excited about a Matt Kindt book because I've loved his work on Berserker over at Boom Studios. I loved his 4-issue Apache delivery service. This guy's great, and I'm just really excited for what this brand new book is going to be all about. For the third week of February of 2024, I actually am going to put a book that I put in January up there as one of my top picks, because I can't get away from this one. Spawn 350. Yes, right now, it's coming out in the third week of February. I have a feeling it's going to stick. It's a landmark, record-breaking issue. It is the highest numbered issue in Legacy from an independent comic book. No one has ever gotten beyond this number in the world of indie comics. Todd McFarlane did it. Spawn has been here since 1992, and it's one of the most well-known comics in the world today. Spawn is right up there with Spider-Man, Batman, the Fantastic Four, Superman, the X-Men, the Justice League, you name it. He's there. We know who Spawn is. People who read it love it. I'm also loving the whole Spawn universe. The 3 new books that came out 2 years ago, I've been reading and I've been enjoying very much. And believe it or not, there's more books coming on the way in the Spawn universe. I'm actually going to be talking about one of them towards the next month, and I'm really excited for that. But I have a feeling this is going to be the #1 book that week because we've been waiting for it, we've been excited for it, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen after we hit this landmark issue. I'm ready to go on to issue 400. And then for the final week of February of 2024, I am going to go back to Image Comics, and I am going to give it to Duke #3 by Josh Williamson. And this is also a very interesting thing to say because this entire month, all my top predictions, not a single one from Marvel or DC. That's a big statement to make, because that's the statement that I'm going to be making for the rest of 2024. The indie books are going to have the potential to take the Western comic book industry out of the ooze and back to the top where it belongs. This whole medium is something that we cannot let die. We can't do that. And when you take a look at all the big things that are happening over in the indie comic world, I have a feeling it's not going to happen. I don't think we're going to go that way. I don't think that manga is going to be beating out Western comic books for very much longer. Based on all of these names and all of these books that are coming out in 2024 and all the ones that still have to be announced, we're in for something very special in 2024, everybody. And like me, I really hope you guys are going to come along for the ride. So that's going to wrap up this month's episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks. Please leave your comments in the box below. Let me know if there were any books in January of 2024 that I left out. What were some of your top picks and honorable mentions of January of 2024? And I'm looking forward to the next episode, but in the meantime, I will see you guys in the next one.